Hello and welcome back to Eve Space Project. So, last time what we had was my first high orbit ship. This was designed to get up to Gilly, and after I docked it, we had this lovely little incident where right click, the Kraken starts, everything shakes, and
No, 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 no.
yeah. So, there's a bit of a problem that I've had. Now, after this, what I managed to do was grab hold of everything that I could and try and get it locked back together. So we decided, because I've got a main station component there, and actually all the Kerbals survived that explosion, what I need to do is grab some of the drone craft. Now this is the end section that we have that was the greenhouse section. So I take one of the other drone crafts that had separated and send it over because this still has the two docking nodes on it. So there's the other section. Well, there's the other section, should I say. I've just realised I've got an extra drone craft out there that's still orbiting. But this section we get orbiting. We get rendezvousing back with the tail section, so the greenhouse section. And we get everything hooked up together. Now that's left us with a little bit more that I can use. So I've jumped back to the main station, and because we've got a factory outlet on here and some of the material kits had been rearranged, what I did with this section was I got it building some docking ports, some connectors, so that I can put things back together. The problem is that I'm lacking a little bit of skill in the Kerbals, but I figured I'd throw this on and see what happens. Now this is how I left it, and I actually updated the entire game before this section here. So now, although the save file is pretty much the exact same, in fact that is the exact same, I have updated to 1.5.1, it was running 1.4.5. And I'm having a look, as you can see here, I've got the docking ports, however there was a problem with the OSC workshop and it wasn't updated. I couldn't use anything, but the parts were still there that had been created. Now the issue is that at the bottom of the docking port, as you can see there, or the bottom where the docking port was, I couldn't actually carry the docking port. So I tried to go and get it, and as you saw there, I managed to get one of the other ones and smash it through the station and decide that was the best of a bad idea, and yeah, I should really leave it alone. So because I had this other section out here, I decided to try and maneuver this one and get it back, because these drone sections have reconfigurable storage and I can use them. I could use one of them as KISS storage. So this was the idea, to get it nice and close. And I bring the entire section back into orbit. Luckily I'd been storing all the excess fuel in these sections, so I managed to push all the way out here, and then I'm using this section. As you can see, it's got no fuel in it, but it has a fair bit of RCS, and then monopropellant for the RCS. So I bring it close, bring out a little Kerbal, and these lovely EVA suit from the Martian, and I throw the docking port onto the drone ship, and then move the drone ship across so that we're sitting close enough that I can pull straight from the drone ship onto the main place. And there we go, we have a docking port on the bottom. It's not exactly what it was before, but it'll do. There's a lot of redundancy built in these stations. And from there we dock this section back up, and what I've done is I've changed everything so that it's auto strutted off of the root part, and that's the best way I can do it, and it seems for the moment to be avoiding the Kraken, and we'll see what happens. Now on from there, the next launch is using a new design for a rocket. This is asparagus staging, and it is quite expensive monetarily. So I'm dropping the outside stages. Each stage feeds into the next one. People that play Kerbal will know this. Others that haven't seen Scott Manley, it's the most efficient use of fuel, but it costs you a lot in boosters. So I'm using this to get nice and high, and the reason I'm showing the entire thing start to finish is whenever I put a new design in, I quite like to show the entire ascent as far as I can. So this is the best way that I've found to launch a sort of heavier craft. This craft is designed essentially so that it could go to a bit of a higher orbit. It can intercept with Gilly, but not all the time, and I don't think it has enough to return from Gilly, so I'm not testing it that far, but it's to give me some options for what I want to do next. And carrying extra fuel up to the station is always a good advantage, so this is why we have this. Now that little squeak that you can hear is actually one of the science mods that's telling me there's new science. I did manage to correct it after a bit, but yeah, it was driving me absolutely insane. And it's driven me even more insane editing this video because I can hear it constantly over and over and over again. Well, these things happen. So the primary focus of this ship has actually been creating a recovery vehicle, because that first ship that I sent up in the last episode actually had a whole load of space tourists that need to be recovered. I sent them up with this, intending on putting them on the station, but I thought it's always better to have another ship attached to the station in case what happened just happened, so I've got a recovery vehicle. So that's what I did. I transferred them across. As you can see here, I am killing that little squeaking sound because it's driving me insane. And then we go for the burn heading out to Gilly. Now, what I want to do when I'm out at Gilly is get more science as usual. There's a couple of missions that I need to pass, you know, world firsts and things like that. So I want to head out there. I change my inclination, I burn out to Gilly. But also this ship, the reason it has such a big fuel tank at the back is because it's not carrying much fuel itself. What it is carrying is quite a lot of equipment to make a little base on Gilly. This is one of the missions I've got. However, I didn't quite read everything that it said, and I'm missing the docking port and a few other things. So it gives me a base on Gilly, and it gives me the ability to expand in the future. And I'm carrying the heaviest stuff out that I need. But once we get down to Gilly, I start having problems with the legs. Now, as it turns out, the ground contact on Gilly is just absolutely insane because of how low the gravity is. So every time I touched down, it was bouncing me off and sending me loopy. And when I did manage to correct it, sort of, it blew off one of my legs. So that was always fun. But after a while I figured out that I can just land without any real legs down, and I managed to work from there. And we get a fairly decent spot. We've got a fairly flat spot, and it'll give me the ability to construct my base. So with the base, anybody that's seen my stuff before will know that I use a lot of the Pathfinder mod and the Wild Blue Industries mod. So that's the first thing that we do. We put a concrete slab down, and we get out our main section. Just, they all clip together using the drill or the screwdriver from the Kerbal Attachment Systems mod. I had to think for a second whether it was attachment or inventory. I do come across a little bit of a problem where the things are looped the wrong way. I don't quite know why, but I had to turn them around so that they inflated the correct way. But we get everything going. We've got a base, it's got some solar panels, and I just leave it there. I don't put anybody on board it just yet because I want to get more skilled people, so I'm bringing them all back if they've been out here, because this will get them leveled up to 2-star. Which is useful. It means that my engineers can do more stuff, my science guys process science a lot better. These are both things that I need. Now, with a little bit of me not knowing what I'm doing for returning from a moon, we managed to get it sorted. Using the manoeuvre nodes, we get an intercept that is fairly well into the atmosphere, enough to slow us down, but not enough to burn us up. And from something I've done later, I'm kind of wondering exactly how much a blater I need to do hard re-entries, but at the same time I really don't want to risk detonating the craft, so I play it nice and safe. We do an aero brake and pass and then go for the landing. But from there, we launch another of the same crafts, except I've added a few little science things onto the side. Science is unlocking things, so I need to get as much as possible, and obviously using the labs here you manage to create a lot more. So I just send another craft up and then process all the science that I can grab, and then return the craft that's already there that's carrying one pilot, and the rest are all space tourists. For every tourist I return I get a good chunk of money, which is always good. It's nice and simple, and it's an easy enough run. Now then, the biggest boosted rocket I have ever run. Now this is asparagus staged again, so every outer booster feeds into the next one in the series. and I'm not recovering any of these. And as you can see by that lovely accident, I got a little trigger happy on the staging and set a couple off early, but managed to survive it. Now, the reason for this very heavy lift rocket out of the atmosphere of Eve is because I've got a small drone, a science drone, that I want to send out to Gilly. And I needed something nice and heavy to get it up into orbit and get it with enough delta V that I could push it out to Gilly. Launches from Eve being notoriously difficult, and even though this is slightly easier, and slightly is subjective. Now, what we've done is I've taken some of the long duration exploration something, possibly facility. These are the mod package that's actually, there's a little section of this attached to the main station, and I've been corrected, and thanks for that correction. It's part of the MOL mod, not the DSEV mod, although I install everything that Angel 125 does at the same time, so I never really know what is part of what. But this little mod gives me a whole load of science, so I get it up and send it straight out, and then jump back, and this is now the third version of this ship that I'm launching. This one has a slightly longer fuel tank on the upper stage, just so that it can push out to Gilly. However, it's not going there. What I am doing with it is I am sending it straight out to the station first, and from there I'm going to transfer some more crew. I've got some more space tourists. Obviously I need as much money as possible, and much like the Russian space program, if I want to launch something daft, then I need to take space tourists along with me to do it. So as you can see here, there's just an extra tank on the back there, and there is some more science equipment on there, which is also to do with another mission that I'm going to be running out at Gilly. So from here we just dock up, and as you can see, I'm using my last available docking port. I really start need to expand in this soon. That really was the worst English I've ever spoken. Apologies, I'm learning Finnish and my entire brain's banjaxed from the effort. So once I'm up here, I transfer some science across, get everything processing, and then reload fuel onto this ship from the couple of drone cargo craft that I've got, and then send it out to Gilly. Nice quick burns. I'm using MechJib for most of this because I'm kind of lazy, but I like building stuff, so that's why I don't mess about too much with the orbital. But after a few interesting and correction burns, we managed to get out to the station. Now the problem I had with this was it actually died on me, because in Time Warp, yeah, I forgot to set it so that it didn't use power or something like that. I think I turned on the science processors and it just drained the battery. So we managed to get it restarted with the electric current off of that ship, and then we undock and put our ship into a high inclination orbit, which I did forget to film. The reason for that is because there's two science experiments which are supposed to be on a long distance, a long duration mission, which was a 75-day mission, so I just put it into the orbit and left there for 75 days. That's why it's got the extra food containers on there, or the extra supplies containers. And then we have our mission to rescue another little Kerbal. So at the end of the 75 days, I don't know how these Kerbals survive in here without me feeding them or doing anything, but they do if you don't touch them. But I managed to recover, I believe, another scientist. And as soon as we've got him, before we go, we just land straight onto Gilly and take some more science and beam all of the extra science back to the station, so that I'm getting everything at the station, every duplicated result at the station, but I'm also pulling enough to complete the missions that I'm being asked to do. And this is where this goes slightly wrong. So because I've been messing about and I was doing fairly aggressive orbital changes, I run out of propellant. So I make the decision quickly to eject the second stage because I've got the life support supplies on this. However, that leaves me with no monopropellant. Although I've got some, I used it all up and I still wasn't back down to an orbit. So using the good old pushing technique, I get low enough. However, again, I won't say however many times, when I time warped, it drained my EC for some weird reason. It shouldn't have drained it that fast, but it drained all the EC I had left, and it wouldn't allow me to turn on the MPU to create current from the leftover fuel, and I've just realised I didn't have any leftover monopropellant, and that's why I couldn't turn it on. Ah well, lessons learned in hindsight. So what I was doing was I was actually pushing it after every orbit to get it into a lower orbit, but there as well, because I didn't have any EC to do staging, I love that physics glitch, I had to get out of the ship and physically deploy the parachutes from orbit. And then I did a couple of quick, when I was getting up to apoapsis after the burns, I was pushing it back down, and eventually it took me a couple of re-entries and I managed to get back down. Now luckily, although I was out of EC, I can't remember how long it takes to kill my Kerbals, but I was kind of cheating at the same time and taking them out every orbit just to make sure, because it kind of resets your counter. But it was actually, I think it was 7 hours in total. It might have been longer than that, I could have been lying. But we did have this lovely little glitch. However, all of the Kerbals survived. So, although it was glitching, it worked out for the best, and we're kinda lucky. But it jumped all over the place, and that's why I've only got that footage, so apologies for that. But now, we do have a chunk of science, and as you can see here, now that this facility's run for a while, I've gotten some science off of this. And when I scroll down my through the contracts windows, I actually realised that this was supposed to be left in orbit of Eve. So I run all the science that I can. I think I can reset these with the scientist later on. But we transfer it all to the station, get it processing, and then spend the money that I can. I take a few extra missions, as you can see here, just to get me up to enough so that I can actually open up the level 3 science centre. And once I've managed to pay for it, we upgrade it, and then after a little while we up our science so that I've got a few extra things on the 3rd tier, which means that next time there's going to be some big rockets and possibly some aircraft as well. So as usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.